It was a typical sunny day in the countryside of Germany. Baron Munchausen, a nobleman, was riding his horse toward a town that was quite far away. Ahead of him stretched a long, twisty path. Next to him lay a vast marsh, an area filled with deep, swampy ground. While the Baron gazed upward, enjoying the pleasant view with sunlight warming his face, his horse suddenly startled. When the Baron looked down to investigate, he spotted a badger darting away from him, and his horse was veering off the path, plunging into the swamp. After several heavy footfalls, the horse ventured deep into the murky water until its legs began to get trapped in the muddy bottom. The horse's body wedged against the Baron's legs, leaving him stuck too. In a panic, the Baron surveyed his surroundings. He was far from civilization and several feet away from the edge of the marsh. There were no branches, stones, logs, or any solid ground nearby. The horse thrashed about and whinnied. The Baron patted its mane for a moment, soothing it. He then attempted to free his legs, but was unsuccessful. Then, in a state of utter desperation, the Baron grabbed his own hair tightly and yanked upward. Slowly, he and the horse began to rise from the mud until they finally emerged safely back to the edge of the swamp. Naturally, this scenario is impossible and never truly happened. But the tale of Baron Munchausen serves as a metaphor and reference for a significant and puzzling philosophical concept known as the Munchausen trilemma. This concept was introduced by German philosopher Hans Albert in 1968 and is named after this narrative. The trilemma posits that what we believe we know is ultimately impossible to validate. Like the Baron, we find ourselves trying to lift ourselves out of the uncertainty and confusion without any stable support. Before exploring the Munchausen trilemma further, it is helpful to consider another important pair of questions. First, what do we know? And secondly, how do we know? In his book Theory of Knowledge, American philosopher Roderick Chisholm presents this pair of questions to illustrate the issues we encounter when starting our pursuit of knowledge. This is referred to as the problem of the criterion to avoid confusion. Here we can define knowledge as a justified true belief. To achieve this type of knowledge, we need to be able to respond to at least one of the above questions. What do we know? Or, how do we know? Responding to one question informs the other, and addressing both allows us to identify and achieve justified true beliefs or knowledge. When we answer the first question and acknowledge something as true, we have a specific instance of knowledge from which we can establish a method or a criterion to differentiate between true and false beliefs, and use this method to identify other truths. Conversely, if we respond to the second question first, supplying a method or criterion for establishing truth, we can then utilize it to discern true versus false beliefs effectively. However, the paradox that arises here is that we can only answer one of these questions using the guidance of the other. How can we understand what we know without a method for knowing it initially? Yet how can we possess a way of knowing without having any knowledge to start? Essentially, we cannot resolve the first question without addressing the second one first, and vice versa, resulting in a cyclical dilemma. Now we find ourselves in the mire, the swamp of the Munchausen trilemma, desperately trying to justify what we believe we know. The second question is, can we ever demonstrate that anything is fundamentally true? The Munchausen trilemma reveals that only three methods exist to substantiate the truth of a claim, and none adequately accomplish this task. The first method involves using one claim to validate another, which assumes the first claim is already accepted as true. This is referred to as circular reasoning. For instance, a person might assert the existence of God. When asked how they know, they might reply, "Because the Bible states it." The questioner then asks, "Why should we trust the Bible?" To which the first person responds, "Because it is God's divine work." The issue here is that the statement offered as support for the initial claim relies on the assumption that the first claim is already accepted as fact, essentially rephrasing the original claim in a different way. This simply affirms something rather than providing real justification or proof. The second method involves attempting to defend a claim using a different statement that doesn't depend on or restate the original assertion. However, this new statement also requires further support, leading to an endless cycle of justifications. This concept is known as infinite regress. For example, if someone questions why the Earth exists, another might answer that it formed from a swirling mass of gas and dust due to gravity. Yet this answer leads to more questions about the origins of the gas and dust. This cycle of justification can continue infinitely, whether it leads back in a loop or extends endlessly. The original question about the Earth's existence, which connects to the Big Bang, would require explanations for each new claim, resulting in an ongoing demand for justification with no foundational truth in sight. The final method to justify a claim involves simply declaring it to be true, without needing additional support or evidence. For example, one might state that a particular car is red, to which someone else might inquire how they know that. The response could be, "Because I see the red color." In this situation, a premise is taken at face value, suggesting that one's perception validates the car's redness. However, merely asserting the truth does not provide proof that anything is truly red, as the existence of the color could be subjective. Misperceptions could lead individuals to be incorrect, without a reliable way to demonstrate the objectivity of what is being perceived, even when utilizing different tools. The ultimate authority of perception still rests with the human mind, which cannot definitively validate a belief without assumption and dogma. Consequently, we confront the challenge of justification through circular reasoning, infinite regress, or axiomatic assertions. If none of these forms of justification hold validity, then achieving genuine justification is impossible, leading to the questioning of knowledge itself. If knowledge is equated to justified true beliefs, then acquiring knowledge becomes unattainable. This brings us to a crucial philosophical inquiry. Is there the possibility of philosophical advancement if absolute knowledge is deemed unreachable? How can we ascertain whether we are enhancing our understanding? What value does philosophy have if we can never be certain of our findings? Austrian philosopher Ludwig Wittgenstein considered these questions deeply. He argued that traditional philosophy offers no clear logical answers or solutions to the challenges of existence, and posited that very few, if any, authentic philosophical dilemmas exist. Those who strive to resolve such issues conclusively, he suggested, are akin to flies trapped in a glass container, attempting futilely to escape by banging against the sides. Regarding his approach to philosophy, Wittgenstein expressed a desire to guide the fly to find its way out of the bottle. Certainly, it is somewhat ironic that the philosopher Wittgenstein both posed and responded to questions about the purpose and significance of philosophy, casting doubt on it through philosophical discourse. He seemed to be asking whether philosophy has any true value. This kind of inquiry might inherently carry its own answer simply through the act of questioning itself. Maybe the essence of philosophy is less focused on achieving a goal and more centered around the journey of seeking knowledge and introspection. It involves reflection, discovery, personal expression, and forming connections with ourselves, with others, and with the wonderfully chaotic world around us. Richard Feynman, a theoretical physicist, expressed that he can accept doubt and uncertainty. He found it far more fascinating to exist without knowing than to settle for potentially incorrect answers, as long as we are open to that idea. As we move forward, uncertainty encourages us to explore different possibilities. Instead of becoming overly confident in our current understanding of absolute truth, we should remain perpetually open to doubt. To advance, one should keep the path to the unknown slightly open. At times, philosophy resembles science and mathematics. At other times, it feels like music. Occasionally, you may walk away with insights into the nature of reality or a sense that you have grasped something. At other times, you might simply feel a connection to the essence of existence, like you've been acknowledged or understood by someone, even someone far removed from you in time and space. That individual is deeply linked to you through thought and empathy, as though they truly understand you. Perhaps the advancement in philosophy isn't solely about discovering truths, but also recognizing the tough, empty truth that genuine answers may not exist, or that they are beyond our reach. We might all be ensnared in the fly bottle with no one set to rescue us, but through avenues like science, math, music, art, and philosophy, we can maximize our time together while we find ourselves still within these confines.